The recent U.S. action against Venezuela's leadership has sent shockwaves far beyond Latin America. Washington has long accused President Nicolas Maduro of narco-trafficking, corruption, human rights abuses, and undermining democracy, framing its actions as part of a broader campaign against transnational crime and authoritarian governance. While Maduro has repeatedly denied all accusations and called them politically motivated, his extraction and extradition in the U.S. has intensified global debate about how far the United States is willing to go when it believes its national security, economic interests, or moral authority are at stake. For many countries, the Venezuela episode is not just about Caracas, it is about precedent. What unsettles governments around the world is not only the arrest and legal accusations themselves, but the message they believe the U.S. is sending, that sovereignty may not be an absolute shield if Washington considers a leader criminal, destabilizing, or hostile to American interests. This fear is magnified by President Trump's statements, since he has openly named or referenced countries he considers problematic or strategically vital. Among those watching closely are Cuba, Colombia, Greenland, and Iran, each for different reasons. Cuba has long been a focal point of U.S. hostility, with the Cuban president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, facing accusations of committing similar crimes as Nicolas Maduro. American administrations have accused Havana's leadership of human rights violations, suppressing political opposition, and supporting anti-U.S. actors abroad. Hardline voices in Washington have also linked Cuban officials to regional instability and intelligence cooperation with U.S. adversaries. While a direct invasion remains unlikely, Cuban leaders fear that the Venezuela case reinforces the idea that the U.S. could pursue arrests, economic strangulation, or regime change strategies if it believes the opportunity exists. Colombia, paradoxically a U.S. ally, is fearful of similar action as Venezuela for different reasons. The country has a long history intertwined with U.S. security policy, particularly around drug trafficking and armed groups. Some Colombian political figures and former officials have faced allegations, both domestically and internationally, related to corruption, paramilitary links, and narcotics networks. The concern in Bogotá is not invasion, but legal and political vulnerability. That shifting U.S. priorities could suddenly turn allies into targets if Washington believes they have failed to control crime or uphold U.S. interests. Mexico has featured prominently in President Trump's rhetoric, particularly regarding organized crime and border security. Trump has repeatedly claimed that powerful drug cartels effectively control large parts of Mexico, accusing them of operating with impunity and, at times, implying complicity or inability on the part of Mexican authorities to contain them. U.S. officials have linked cartel activity to mass fentanyl trafficking, human smuggling, and violence spilling across the U.S. border, framing the issue as a national security threat rather than a purely criminal one. Within this context, concerns in Mexico stem from fears that Washington could justify unilateral action, such as cross-border operations, sanctions, or legal cases, by arguing that the Mexican state has lost effective control over parts of its territory, a narrative that echoes justifications used in Venezuela. Greenland, though not a country but an autonomous territory of Denmark, represents a different kind of anxiety from that in Venezuela. President Trump's past statements about acquiring Greenland highlighted how strategic geography can override diplomatic norms. The island's vast natural resources, rare earth minerals, and critical position in Arctic security make it increasingly valuable as global competition intensifies. While no crimes are alleged against Greenlandic leaders, The fear here is transactional power politics, where strategic importance alone could invite pressure, coercion, or extraordinary measures. Iran sits at the center of the most severe concerns. U.S. officials have repeatedly accused Iran's leadership of sponsoring terrorism, pursuing destabilizing military programs, suppressing internal dissent, and threatening regional security. Sanctions, indictments, and military strikes have all been used as tools against Iranian interests in the past. The country is currently dealing with nationwide protests that, according to the Islamic regime, are sponsored by external actors such as Israel, and the U.S. President Trump has warned the country's leadership, stating that the U.S. is ready to take action against the Iranian regime if they continue violating the rights of the protesters. From Tehran's perspective, the Venezuela situation reinforces fears that U.S. legal systems, intelligence operations, and military power could one day converge into a direct attempt to invade, arrest, or remove top Iranian leaders. The fear many countries share is not that they are identical to Venezuela, but that the rules of engagement appear increasingly flexible. When military power, legal indictments, economic pressure, and political rhetoric align, nations worry that disagreement with Washington could escalate beyond diplomacy. Whether these fears are justified or exaggerated, one thing is clear: the U.S. action against Venezuela has reshaped global perceptions of power, sovereignty, and vulnerability. And many governments are quietly asking the same question: could we be next?